let me welcome you all to this roundtable and thank you for joining us in a presentation and discussions by the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, or UNECE, on PPPs, but from a slightly different perspective, the perspective of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, which I am sure you are all familiar with by now. This ambitious agenda to transform the world by 2030, eradicate poverty, and save the planet from environmental disasters. The 17 SDGs require massive financing and funding, and PPPs are given a central role in their implementation. But are PPPs fit for purpose for the SDGs? This is the question that UNECE has been trying to address for the past 5 years or so. How to make PPPs compliant with the SDGs. The People First PPP model was launched by UNECE with people at the core and the SDGs at its soul. People First PPPs are the drivers of the SDGs. Access and equity, environmental sustainability, resilient infrastructure, fiscal sustainability, women's empowerment, stakeholder engagement are all key elements that you will find in the SDGs. In this roundtable, in the next, I would say, 30-35 minutes or so, with my colleagues Claudio Meza and Anton Amenego, we will be presenting the People First PPP model for the SDGs through the UNECE 10 guiding principles, the standard on a zero tolerance approach to corruption in PPP procurement, and the first version of the evaluation methodology to score projects against the SDGs. Please feel free to ask questions or send them to us by email or via LinkedIn, and we will be more than happy to reply. With that, I would like to pass the floor to Claudio, who will take us through the first part of the presentation. Claudio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you very much, colleagues. Welcome to our presentation from the UNECE. We will present today what are the types of PPPs needed for the Sustainable Development Goals. As some of the colleagues I can see joining us at this session, some of you know our work that was kindly introduced by my colleague Tony Bonici, and we will present the main activities and basis on which have been developed our work in the last couple of years. Next, please. All our activities which are currently based on the UNECE People First approach to public-private partnership for the Sustainable Development Goals. Next, please. All these come from the decision taken by the member state in 2015 with the adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, that were adopted at the General Assembly. By then, on these 17 goals, we have chosen SDG number 17, which describe partnerships and invite the governments, public sector, private sector, a civil society to participate in the development to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The goal 17 that invites different stakeholders to develop through partnerships projects is based in addition to the all previous 16 goals to allow those who are not normally participating in the development of the societies to have an opportunity through this partnership to participate directly on the goals. Next, please. Based as well on the People First approach also takes based on what is the decision taken as a new generation of infrastructure projects that has been done through the PPPs. Putting the people's interest at their core. From traditional value for money approach, we have identified that an approach through value for people and value for the planet would be much more attractive, and it could be the core of our new approach to see PPPs as a mean to increase the development and the better capacities to develop infrastructure. Among the main definitions through the people first approach, we have identified 5 people first outcomes that derive from the SDGs, and it concerns and touch directly infrastructure. And we have selected access and equity, economic effectiveness and fiscal sustainability, resilience and environmental sustainability, replicability, and stakeholder engagement as the main outcomes on which we are based our people first approach in PPPs for the SDGs. Next, please. How does UNECE mainstream the people first approach to PPPs for the SDGs? Well, we have defined 10 guiding principles for people first PPPs, which will support or allows to support governments in designing and implementing comprehensive people first PPP policies, programs, and pipelines of projects. Through the UNECE People First PPP evaluation methodology for the SDGs. We have developed an evaluation methodology to score projects against the People First outcome and the SDGs. Also, we have defined the UNECE policy and sectoral standard to improve transparency and lower transaction cost through the sectoral standards on PPPs on railways, renewable energy, and roads, standards that you can find on our website and are available for the international community. We have launched as well the development on the standards on urban rail transit, airports, healthcare, waste to energy, and water and sanitation. Some of them are still in development, and the others, some of them are being put on hold according to requests coming from member states. And we have also, we were very happy and glad to develop the standard on zero tolerance approach to corruption in PPP procurement, which is also available in our website. Finally, as a UNECE People First PPP model legislation, we have been developing the People First model law that is going to be finalized soon according to the decisions made by member states. Next, please. The guiding principles for People First PPP in support the SDGs, as I mentioned before, there are 10, next please, which were identified as a principle to make sure that people needs are listened and their needs are addressed. The principle 2 consider the deliver more, better, simpler people first project by joining up governments and allowing cities and other local levels to develop projects themselves. Increase skills in delivering people first project to better empower women in projects, encourage the private sector to contribute to the necessary transfers of a skill. And others said that also clearly identified the setup, clearly the project's selection criteria to promote the value for people. This is clearly explicitly mentioned in Principle 7, so that the best people first project can be selected. Principle 8 refers as well to make environmental sustainability a key component of evaluating, awarding, and implementing people first projects. Also to ensure that blended financing catalyze private partner to invest in people first PPPs and avoid debt traps by ensuring the fiscal sustainability of people first project and the transparency of fiscal policies. Next, please. Uh, as I mentioned before, we have developed a number of standards. Among them, we would like to present now the UNECE standard on a zero tolerance approach to corruption in PPP procurement, since we consider that this is a very important document that could help governments, private sector, and civil society to better fight corruption, as it is considered one of the biggest challenges to the achievement of people first PPPs. The standard is free, available on our website. It considers that the corruption risk exists across all the three stages of the PPP procurement process: project selection, and competition, and contract administration. Um, the the standard is also allows identification of the high-risk areas where a PPP procurement process corruption is likely to happen, provides as well a voluntary set of principles and conditions that governments could incorporate in their regulations, and provides policy recommendation for government to mitigate corruption risks. Uh, for example, it considered that PPP can be more at risk for corruption when the government lacks strong and independent institutions. During the tender process, the public entity allows itself to be improperly influenced by potential bidders, or allows PPP advisor to control the process or influence the outcomes. Project preparation and the pre-tender design of performance measurement is weak. We can mention that this standard has been already used in Saudi Arabia, for instance. It's been a key document that has been used as a reference to define their regulations there, and they have been very well considered. Also, we know that some Middle East countries have already used this document heavily in their definitions. Next, please. We have here some examples of policy recommendation for government to mitigate the corruption risk. It can be used through consultants and experts, and avoid their influence or wrong influence in decision-making process of the government. The recommendation here, for instance, is the government should employ consultants and experts who are independent and biased, and have no conflict of interest. Also can be used on unsolicited proposals, where government must be cautious when dealing with the unsolicited proposals. Our recommendation is that government should plan their infrastructure needs and services and give priority to publicly originated and procured projects. Unsolicited proposals should be considered as an exception. The recommendation as well is also the majority of unsolicited proposals can be competitively procured in whole or in part. Government should therefore strive to organize a competitive procurement that is open to all potential bidders. Next, please. The next part of our presentation will consider the People First PPP evaluation methodology for the SDGs as one of other tools that we are developing together with member states to evaluate projects. I leave the floor to my colleague Antonin Mengo, who is going to present in detail the evaluation methodology. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudio. So, as Claudio just said, my presentation today will be on the People First PPP evaluation methodology. So, as Claudio mentioned, also to implement the People First approach to PPPs, to mainstream this new approach to PPPs, At UNECE, member states, they have adopted standards, recommendation tools that Claudio just introduced to enhance the capacity of... Claudio, maybe can you mute yourself?
Yep.
Thanks. Yes, so we have these tools to enhance the capacity of governments to design, develop people-first PPP projects. And one of the most recent tool that we have is this evaluation methodology, which is a methodology developed last year in 2020 by a project team of more than 100 international experts in the field. It's a unique initiative in the United Nations to have a methodology scoring infrastructure projects against the SDGs. So it's built on existing sustainability methodologies, and it allows to assess the compliance of an infrastructure project, not just a PPP project, against the 5 people-first outcomes introduced by Claudio and the SDGs. And the project team developed under these 5 outcomes that we have 22 benchmarks and 100 indicators. And in addition to that, there is a weighting and scoring system for these benchmarks and indicators that allows to score a project and tell if it is people first compliant, SDG compliant or not. And it is also worth noting that the methodology is not a comprehensive methodology to tell whether a project will be successful or not, or if it will achieve value for money. It only assesses the compliance of projects against the SDGs. So traditional value for money tools must still be used in addition, in complement to the methodology. And last year, in 2020, we tested the methodology on more than 30 projects. And now this year, we are doing further testing to improve it. We have a lot of demand with more than 30 countries who expressed interest in using the methodology. And it was developed as a self-assessment tool. I will briefly introduce you how this self-assessment tool look like and how you can use it and even access it. And as I said, we are doing further testing this year to implement the methodology and improve it. And maybe you know that we organized a competition in April during the PPP Forum, our annual session of the PPP Forum, where we organized the Building Back Better Infrastructure Award 2021. And it was an opportunity to extensively test the methodology as it was used by the jury to assess each project submitted and shortlist the project, the best project for Building Back Better. So we are currently improving, fine-tuning the methodology, and we will release later this year an improved and more usable version. So on this slide, you can see the 22 benchmarks that I just mentioned and that form the methodology. The idea is to assess how well a project performs against each of these 22 benchmarks. And to do that, as I mentioned, we have indicators. So under each benchmark, we have several indicators from 3 to 7 on average, and in total 100 for the 22 benchmarks. And these indicators are easy to understand. So they can be, they are flexible also. They can be applied to every type of projects. That's one important characteristic of the methodology. It can be applied at all stages of the PPP life cycle, from the design stage to the development stage, until the implementation stage. Here, well, it's much better to use the methodology at the initial phases of project development, where there is more scope for improvement, compared to when a project is already implemented. So around the pre-feasibility study, for example, the methodology can be used to improve the design of a project to make it more SDG compliant, people first compliant. So yes, so as I mentioned, the first use case of the methodology is a self-assessment tool that the UNECE has developed based on this methodology. And it's initially available as an Excel file, and we are planning to develop it as an online platform, so as a web platform, so that it will be even easier to use it and access it. And the idea is to self-assess a project using this tool. And here you can see on the slide a screenshot of one benchmark in the self-assessment tool. For example, here, that's the first benchmark of the methodology, provide essential services. And as I said, for this benchmark, for all the benchmark, each benchmark, we have indicators. Here we have 5 indicators. And the user of the self-assessment tool only has to select one of the possible answers using a drop-down menu. Here you can see with the yellow arrows. Most of the time, these answers are yes or no, sometimes not applicable for some indicators that are not applicable to all PPP or infrastructure projects. And once you or a user answers all these questions, these indicators, the tool automatically gives you a performance level for the benchmark. Then you have to do that for the 22 benchmarks. And at the end, the tool calculates, provides an indicative score for each of the 5 people first outcome and an overall score. Of course, it's only an indicative score because it's a self-assessment. It's a self-assessment tool. But the idea behind the development of this tool is to help improve project. It has a developmental angle more than a rating angle. The idea is not to rate projects, but help improve projects, design better projects. And actually, in addition to the score that you are given by the tool, the self-assessment tool also provides automatically a set of comments on the strengths and the areas for improvement for a project. And these comments are based on the answers to the indicators. They are automatically generated. And you can see, for example, here on the slide that there are some recommendations to improve the project, for example, to develop metrics, to measure the effectiveness of the stakeholder engagement plan and public participation. And also you have the strengths. So that's just a screenshot, a selection of all the comments that you can get from the tool. And this tool, this self-assessment tool, and the methodology, which is a document with the list of all the benchmarks and indicators, they are all available in English, Russian, and they also will be available in French very soon. And you can already access all these resources on the UNECE website. So the self-assessment tool that I just presented, there is also a user guide to this self-assessment tool, which is a very detailed guide, a manual that helps users answer all the questions, all the indicators on the tool, to know what it means to answer a yes or no to an indicator, and based also on the project development stage. So we have different guidance depending on the stage of the project being evaluated. And as I mentioned, we are also testing the methodology this year on improving it. And to collect feedback and comments, we've developed a testing protocol in the form of an online questionnaire, which you can also access on the UNECE website. And that's a way for UNECE to collect the feedback. So if you test the methodology and you have comments, please feel free to send them to us on the testing protocol. And last but not least, all these resources, they are available free of charge. So feel free to visit the website of UNECE. And yes, if you have any question, I don't know if we can bring you on the conversation, but if you have any question, you can even write them in the chat, I think. So thank you very much. I can see the chat. Yes. So yes, if you have question, feel free to ask us in the chat. I think it will be the easier way because I don't know how to bring you. Okay. Or I think you can raise your hand.
You can raise the hand and also in the chat. I'm following the chat, Antonin. Thanks.
I don't see any question. Again, feel free to visit our website at unec.org/PPP, where you can find all the standards, recommendations, tools developed by UNECE and approved by our member states that Claudio just introduced in his presentation. So we have all the sectoral standards. I can show them to you on screen.
Maybe Antonin, while you are doing that, I would take this opportunity to thank the experts who gave their time pro bono, mostly over 100 of them, to develop this tool over a period of 1 year during the worst of the COVID pandemic, I would say, because work started around February of last year, and the first draft was ready before December of last year. We are also grateful to the many governments who have tested the methodology, who has given us very useful feedback, which we are now including and integrating into a revised version. And I would also like to thank all the experts who are helping us with the second phase, I would say, which will lead us hopefully to its adoption later on this year. And here, some of the critical comments that we received were around to make sure that the tool remains simple, comprehensive, but simple at the same time. Also, maybe to revise the scoring mechanism by which yes and no answers, to perhaps consider doing them from a scale, for example, 1 to 5. Another is to make sure that we give clear guidance to the governments at which stage during the PPP whole life cycle is best to use the methodology. The methodology would be used anytime, but there might be some stages at the very early stages where the governments would get the maximum benefit from the methodology, because then they will know exactly what needs to be done in the future. Because if you were to use it, say towards the end, which is during the operational phase, then you would lose a lot of things that you would have had done earlier. Like, for example, when it comes to stakeholder engagement, or to choosing the site, looking at the environmental sustainability of it, that would be a bit too late if you were to do it only at the end of the process. Also, to make sure that the methodology covers all sectors and all countries, so there is no bias there. So all countries can use it, and also the sectors. There is no sector bias. The last thing I wanted to perhaps emphasize is that the methodology is scoring projects and not countries. and this is something that's a few governments made it clear to us that we need to focus on scoring of the project per se and not the enabling environment within which the project is taking place. We know that the enabling environment is crucial, is important, because otherwise, the projects don't happen in a vacuum. So it needs a strong and the right enabling environment. But I would say that the methodology is mainly focusing on scoring project. Over to you, Antona.
Thank you very much. I see a question from Irina Tsay. In case governments wants to hire external consultants, where they can find them. We don't have a roster of consultants, but what we have is actually a document that was developed for our working party on PPPs, with recommendations to involve reliable and independent experts to develop people first PPPs. So in this document that you can find on our website, there is a series of recommendations that should be taken into account before hiring consultants. As Claudio mentioned, in the standard on a zero tolerance approach to corruption, consultant must be independent, and there is a risk of corruption. So we have a specific document on this, and I invite you to access it. I can actually send it in the chat.
Yeah, Antonin, just while you're sending in the chat, I wanted to, emphasize that there is a link between the standard on ZTC, which is zero tolerance to corruption approach, and also the hiring of consultants, which is a crucial area for many governments. And here, I have to say that both documents were developed with the support of the Center of Excellence on Law Policy and Institutions. It's an international center. It's based in France. Most of you are aware of, and is headed by our good friend Mike Freeler.
We have in the question and answers a query from Mrs. Raisha Jauhar. She is asking about any recommendation on how to raise the awareness to apply the People First PPP to achieve the SDGs.
Thank you, Claudio. I think it is clear that implementing the SDGs is not just the role of governments. I think it was made clear by the Secretary General when he launched the Decade of Action a few months back, that everyone is responsible. Private sector, NGOs, academia, but also individuals, all of us. We are all responsible to spread the gospel, as it were, and to make sure that the SDGs are met by 2030. When it comes to spreading the ideas on People First, we are available all the time. That's why we are happy that we are participating in this Congress today. And we organize a lot of meetings. We have a lot of bilaterals with governments. We have our own meetings, and whenever we speak, we always promote the People First approach to PPPs for the SDGs. As I said at the beginning, the soul of People First is the SDGs. One wouldn't exist without, the People First wouldn't exist without the SDGs. So they are more than linked. They are, one and the same, I would say. Yes, so if you have any ideas on how this could be spread further, we work with many UN agencies, many partners, our other regional commissions, but also global colleagues who have a global remit. In New York, for example, we always try to introduce or to make the people first PPP approach to the SDGs more widely known. And we are prepared. We are giving capacity building and training to governments individually, those who are interested and want to introduce the people first PPP elements into their policy, but also into their legislation, into their guides for the public servants. So this is something that we engage on a regular basis with our member states in the UNECE region. That's our focus.
Another topic that I would like to add to what just has been said regarding how to raise the awareness. UNCTAD, which is the UN Conference on Trade and Development, has, through their research, has detected that to achieve the SDGs would require between 5 to 7 trillion in annual investment. If you look at these figures, clearly through only the government interest or energy to reach by 2030 the 17 goals would be impossible. So the use of the private sector investment in developing infrastructure and capacities is vital. There is no other way to reach the 17 goals if private sector and others stakeholder from society participates, will not be possible to make it. So this is something that should be considered when discussing this. And the people first PPP approach is a way to show and invite those stakeholders which are not necessarily public sector to get involved in the development of these infrastructure projects through the use of our methodologies and different standards we have developed, which will give you an opportunity to measure and assess what has been done by the government and private sector to reach the goal, how close they are by using this investment, these resources, to get closer to the 17 goals. This is also, in my view, an attractive way to raise the awareness about using our instruments and tools to measure and assess where you are, where the governments are, regarding each of the goals that we have selected through the 10 principles, through the 5 outcomes we have defined to develop the evaluation methodology. So it's a better way, not only for governments, but also to any stakeholder to assess the real situation and using directly some of the SDGs or some of the indicators to better identify where they are. Thank you.
Claudio, I think, well, we lost Tony, but
yes,
we reached the end of the time slot that was given to us.
Yes, I would like to say that we don't see extra queries from the chat. So we invite you all to visit our webpage as www.unec.org/ppp, from where you get access to all our instruments and standards that you can download for free. And you can also, of course, follow up on what is going on regarding the development of the evaluation methodology. I would like to insist that this is work in progress. We have been discussing recently with our member states on ways to continue. They are trying to refine what has been developed so far, and we look forward very positively to the future on what is going to be decided in our end of November meeting of the Working Party, and on ways how we are going to not only strengthen the instrument, but also to include different views to have a much more powerful instrument to allow all stakeholders to use it. As it was mentioned by my colleague Antonin previously in his presentation, you can work today with what is the Excel version. You can download it directly from our website, and we'll expect that soon in the future we will have a web-based instrument for more sophisticated to conduct your assessment when developing projects by using the People First PPP concept. We would like to thank all of you who have been following this presentation. Your presence is very important for us, and I hope we will be in touch in the future to continue the development of such tool. Thank you very much, and if there is no further question, we would finalize our session today. Thank you.